For years it seemed I lay on the floor watching the fire burn itself out to charred timbers. The room had cooled, the freezing air moved through the open window. And again I wept, my own sobs reverberated in my ears until I felt I couldn't endure the sound of them. And it was no comfort to know that all things were magnified in this state, even the misery that I felt. Now and then I prayed again, I begged for forgiveness, though forgiveness for what I couldn't have said, I prayed to the Blessed Mother, to the saints. I murmured the Aves over and over until they became a senseless chant, and my tears were blood, and they left their stain on my hands when I wiped at my face. Then I lay flat on the stones, murmuring not prayers any longer, but those inarticulate pleas we make to all that is powerful, all that is holy, all that may or may not exist by any and all names. Do not leave me alone here. Do not abandon me. I am in the witch's place. It's the witch's place. Do not let me fall even farther than I have already fallen this night. Do not let it happen. Lestat, wake up. But Magnus's words came back to me over and over. To find hell, if there is a hell. If there is a prince of darkness. Finally I rose on my hands and knees. I felt lightheaded and mad and almost giddy. I looked at the fire and saw that I might still bring it back to a roaring blaze and throw myself into it. But even as I forced myself to imagine the agony of this, I knew that I had no intention of doing it. After all, why should I do it? What had I done to deserve the witch's fate? I didn't want to be in hell even for a moment. I sure as hell wasn't going there just to spit in the face of the Prince of Darkness, whoever he might be. On the contrary, if I was a damned thing, then let the son of a bitch come for me. Let him tell me why I was meant to suffer. I would truly like to know. As for oblivion, well, we can wait a little while for that. We can think this over for a little while at least. An alien calm crept slowly over me. I was dark, full of bitterness and growing fascination. I wasn't human anymore, and as I crouched there thinking about it and looking at the dying embers, an immense strength was gathering in me. Gradually, my boyish sobs died away, and I commenced to study the whiteness of my skin, the sharpness of the two evil little teeth, and the way that my fingernails gleamed in the dark, as though they had been lacquered. All the little familiar aches were gone out of my body, and the remaining warmth that came from the smoking wood was good to me, as something laid over me or wrapped about me. Time passed, yet it did not pass. Each change in the moving air was caressing, and when there came from the softly lighted city beyond a chorus of dim church bells ringing the hour, they did not mark the passage of mortal time. They were only the purest music, and I lay stunned, my mouth open, as I stared at the passing clouds. But in my chest I started to feel a new pain, very hot and mercurial. It moved through my veins, tightened about my head, and then seemed to collect itself in my bowels and belly. I narrowed my eyes, I cocked my head to one side. I realized I wasn't afraid of this pain, rather I was feeling it as if I were listening to it. And I saw the cause of it then. My waist was leaving me in a small torrent. I found myself unable to control it. Yet, as I watched the foulness stain my clothes, this didn't disgust me. Rats creeping into the very room, approaching this filth on their tiny soundless feet, even these did not disgust me. These things couldn't touch me, even as they crawled over me to devour the waste. In fact, I could imagine nothing in the dark, not even the slithering insects of the grave, that could bring about revulsion in me. Let them crawl on my hands and face, it wouldn't matter now. I wasn't part of the world that cringed at such things, and with a smile I realized that I was out of the dark ilk that makes others cringe. Slowly and with great pleasure I laughed, and yet my grief was not entirely gone from me. It lingered like an idea, and that idea had a pure truth to it. I am dead. I am a vampire, and things will die so that I may live. I will drink their blood so that I may live, and I will never see Nicholas again, nor my mother, nor any of the humans I have known and loved, nor any of my human family. I'll drink blood, and I'll live forever. That is exactly what will be, and what will be is only beginning. It is just born, and the labor that brought it forth was rapture such as I have never known. I climbed to my feet. I felt myself light and powerful, and strangely numbed, and I went to the dead fire, and walking through the burnt timbers, there were no bones. It was as if the fiend had disintegrated. What ashes I could gather in my hands I took to the window, and as the wind caught them I whispered a farewell to Magnus, wondering if he could yet hear me. At last only charred logs were left, and the soot that I wiped up with my hands and dusted off into the darkness. It was time now to examine the inner room.